Welcome back to YGO Podcast. I'm Patrick Ramsey, better known as the Old Guy. Thanks for joining us again. I do have another deck profile. This deck profile is going to be some of the most trolliest stuff I think I've seen. So I had a video that I checked out a little bit earlier in the year, a couple of months ago. So it has to do with Runic, but they kind of emphasize this aspect of the burn. Okay, so if you didn't know Runic can burn, yes, it definitely can, especially when you're putting it together with cards that are degenerate as Fire Princess. And I'm going to apologize now for the sleeves. So you've got a ton of glare, but I'm going to tell you this. These sleeves are so freaking cool that I just can't not use them. So today I'd like to bring to you the Runick Fire Princess burn strategy. Shout outs to Harpy King. He, she, they were the inspiration for this deck. A lot of this list is very similar to what they have. I just like building the cards and putting them into a physical form and then just playing with it. So this deck is not highly competitive, but it is super cool, and I do like the aspect that it burns the opponent pretty much to death, and you'll see. So starting off for the deck profile, you've got 3 Fire Princess, and I think the abuse of older cards like, in first, second generation Yu-Gi-Oh, those cards are mostly not cards that are not they don't have a once per turn clause. So if you can see it right here, let me try to get it close. It says each time you gain life points, inflict 500 damage to your opponent. Great. All right, so that's a great start to the deck profile as far as a monster that is just not once per turn, which is why we're going to abuse that aspect of gaining life points and burning our opponent. So 3 Fire Princess. And the way we get to our Fire Princess is we're going to make sure that we have a card that allows us to special it right out of the deck. So we're going to go old school again and have 3 Summoner Monk. Summoner Monk, in case you didn't know, when you normal summon it, this is also a really great card, and a lot of people don't realize it, is that it can't be tributed. So no kaijus, no other types of effects that would tribute a monster on the field. But when this card is normal summon, it switches itself to defense position automatically. You discard a spell, special level 4 monster from your deck. So that level 4 monster that gets special summoned cannot attack for that turn. So it makes Summoner Monk a really great tool to bring out Fire Princess directly from the deck. Our last monster in the deck will be Royal Magical Library. So I want you to see that. Yeah. Unfortunately, these sleeves are just so cool you can't even see them. They're kind of like a John Cena sleeve. Anyway, Royal Magical Library is a great card for this deck. And I also put it in this deck to help bridge some gaps. As you can see, we do run a card in here to help us search out Fire Princess just in case we cannot get to it. And this card is really great because of the amount of spells in the deck. It just allows and facilitates for extra draws. This card is also not once per turn. So essentially what Royal Magical Library does, in case you don't know, is that it allows you to draw 1 card for every 3 spell counters on it. It gains a spell counter for every spell card activated. So it is not once per turn, so you can continually and potentially draw an infinite amount of times. Great card. So now for the shenanigan cards that really facilitates making this whole thing possible is Soul Absorption. So Soul Absorption is a continuous spell card, also not once per turn. It says that if a card or cards is banished, gain 500 life points for each. So you can see where the shenanigan comes from, especially when you have 2 Soul Absorptions and a Fire Princess and a bunch of Runic cards in hand. You can see how the shenanigan starts to happen. Essentially, for every Runic card that you activate, you're going to gain a minimum of 1,000 life points. Not only that, you're going to deal 500 damage for essentially every every time this card activates, or each copy of this card activates, because of Fire Princess's effect. I want to post that video. I'll go ahead and post that video in the beginning, somewhere, maybe, hopefully around here. Like I said, shout out to Harpy King for giving us this idea. He posted that video quite some time ago, and I couldn't find anything else like it anywhere else. So I'd like to recreate that deck and hopefully bring just a little bit more, notice to it. Let's see how relevant it is. This could be a strategy where you can throw Mystic Mine in there to help it to be a little bit more successful at a meta level. But to me, this deck is just something really fun that you can play with your friends. You can play at locals and possibly take a top with something like it. Nobody can come out of left field. I think that that's what locals is really good for. 2 Ancient Leafs. So if you notice a lot in the replays, you're going to be gaining a ton of life points. So this card allows you, if your life points are above, I believe, what does it say? It says if you have 9,000 or more life points, you can pay 2,000 life points to draw 2 cards. So at multiple points in the replays that I've watched for this deck, this card, you can pretty much activate this card whenever. There was a point in time where in a replay I've watched for this deck, they had 21,000 life points, and they were just taking direct attacks. It was fine. A lot of times what you realize when you play a deck like this where it's gaining a ton of life points and then it's burning your opponent constantly is that you really don't mind certain costs, especially like this. You really don't mind having an extremely low monster count. You really don't mind those things as long as you can access your Runic cards and get to those and continue to keep gaining life points and keep burning your opponent is honestly a really fun strategy to see unfold. So yeah, 2 of these. I do have 3. I do recommend 3 in my opinion. I really do think that 3 would be great. However, 2 is the standard. I can understand why that is. It is a brick probably at the beginning of the game, especially if you don't have your engine started. But there also is, so my changes that I made to the deck, I put in 3 small worlds. So this is actually a thing that I wanted to play because I figured that this would be the best card to search Fire Princess. I mean, you have 2 level 4 spellcasters plus Fire Princess is a level 4 herself. So if you had something like Royal Magical Library in your deck, you could reveal in your hand if you have Fire Princess in your deck and you have Royal Magical Library in hand, you have your one of, you reveal Royal Magical Library in hand, reveal Summoner Monk in deck because they're both spellcasters. But then, since Summoner Monk is a level 4, you can add Fire Princess from your deck with Small World that way, and you can help bridge those gaps. That's if you start out a little bit backwards. I think that this is a really great card, a really great search strategy. You can definitely replace it with anything else that you'd like. But I think that this is a good card in terms of getting your engine started because this deck can definitely brick. You can brick on a whole bunch of spells, and you can brick on definitely some other cards that are in this deck that just don't facilitate any kind of advantage at that point in time. So this will help out, hopefully. And then, of course, we have our Runic engine. So I'm just going to kind of speed through these just really quickly, not too fast. But we've got Triple Fountain, which is pretty standard. You're going to need those when you activate a Runic quick play spell. You're able to shuffle back 3 into the deck and then draw that same amount. I believe it's up to 3. So you can shuffle back 1, 2, or 3 and then draw the cards corresponding to however many you shuffled back. 3 Runic Tip, pretty standard. Your search card banishes 1 card off the top of the deck. I think what card really makes this deck go around that you need to play 3 of, and normally it's a 2 or a 1 of, is Runick Slumber. So Runick Slumber, what it does is it protects a monster from destruction by battle or by card effect, I believe. And then after that, it banishes, I believe, what is it, 2 or 3 off the top of the deck? 3 cards. So, and every Runic card, besides Runic Fountain, has the second clause of special summon out of the extra deck. So I do think that in order to protect your Fire Princess or your Summoner Monk or anything like that, this Runick Slumber will definitely help you push through a lot of other plays. But let me see real quick. Destroyed by battle or by card effect. Yep, absolutely. I want to just make sure that I'm giving you guys the right information. And at any point in time, please feel free to call me out in the comments. I have no shame in my game. If I mess up an effect, I will admit it. So we also have 3 Runick Flashing Fire. I understand that that's a little bit far off the side of the camera. Please don't flame me in the comments about that. Flashing Fire is pretty standard. It is the destruction of a special summon monster on your opponent's side of the field. You can only activate 1 of those, plus it still has that special summon from the extra deck clause. Then we have 3 freezing curses. The freezing curses are going to be essentially your infinite impermanence. It's going to be like your forbidden chalice. No real need to explain any more than that. Then you have Runic Destruction, which is going to be your spell and trap destruction. To be honest, we really don't care too much about that unless the spell and trap cards are stopping us from burning our opponent to death. So that's going to be a few of the lineup. Let me go ahead and just get this out of the way. We still have more cards. All right, to continue with the Runic cards. So here are our 2 ofs. So we have 2 Golden Droplet. Of course, the amount of cards that your opponent gets to banish is 4, but they do get to draw 1. This really does help. Your Soul Absorption, you're going to gain 2,000 life points off that 1 card by itself. So that really does help your strategy out, which means that more life points you gain, the more times that you can burn your opponent. And we want to make sure that we're playing pretty much every Runic card that's available to us, so that way we can continue to keep burning our opponent for 3, 4, 5k in a turn. That would be awesome, especially with the other spell cards that we play that banish cards and allow you to gain life points, such as Small World. So we have 2 of Runic Dispelling. That is just going to kind of go in tandem with Golden Droplet. Then we have 2 Runic Smithing Storm. I think that that's an awesome card. It is definitely reliant upon your opponent and what they have on the field, which can sometimes be a lot, sometimes not. And then the last 2 are 2 Runic Allure. This card right here is probably the MVP of the deck. It technically should be at 3, but I'm playing it at 2. And I know that the list that I got this deck idea from, they were playing this definitely at 3. So if you don't know what Runic Allure does, is pretty much each time that your Runic's card resolves, your opponent banishes 1 card off the top of their deck at resolution, essentially. And this card obviously activates on another chain and banishes an additional card from your opponent's deck. So this just allows for you to trigger so many different effects. If you've got 2 Soul Absorptions on the field, a Fire Princess, you activate a whole slew of Runic cards, right? And for each copy of these, you're just going to keep continually banishing cards and triggering their Soul Absorptions again, which then trigger your Fire Princess. It's like an infinity combo. And to me, it was just like I was in awe when I was watching it actually happen. So for the last bit, I'm just going to show you the cards in the extra deck. This deck really doesn't have a side deck. You're playing a gimmick deck, let's be honest, right? So you're going to just run your 2 Hugin. You're going to run, honestly, I would run 3 Mugen. I would definitely run 3 of those now that I'm thinking about it because of the life point gain at the end phase. So you gain 1,000 while Mugen is on the field. I think that that's really good, but I don't think that you would necessarily need three. You can definitely play three. But this card is probably going to be in line with the gimmick of the deck. It's just gaining a crap ton of life points and then, reducing your opponent's deck and life points down to 0. And then, of course, you want to run your 2 Gary, right? And that's it. And pretty much the rest of the deck is your oyster. Whichever you want to put in your side deck for a gimmick deck like this or your extra deck, I imagine you probably won't be using a whole bunch of different monsters in your extra deck besides your Runic cards. And, I just want to make sure that you guys understand that this deck is not necessarily 100% competitive, right? But this deck is so much fun to play, and I really did enjoy, testing it out for myself and watching replays of it. And I really hope that you guys enjoyed this because, Yu-Gi-Oh needs sometimes, we need to have fun a little bit, right? We need to have a time where we're not necessarily playing tier 0, tier 1 strategies. We need to know that something else out there is obviously enjoyable for the game as well. So if you guys really enjoyed this deck profile, please like, comment, and if you like the channel, please subscribe. I'm going to try to punch these out at least once a week. I've got some more content planned in the future, so if you want to see more content, please hit that notification bell for the channel. Join us at my group, Yu-Gi-Oh! Or YGO TCG Decks Facebook group. Working on getting an Instagram again, working on doing Twitter. Might have to have some assistance with that. Please join us at least in the Facebook groups for now, and we'll have everything set up here in the near future. Thanks, guys. I'll talk to you soon.